A few years ago, we lost Hop House 13 from our supermarket shelves, but today I get to find out whether its replacement, Harp Lager, was really any better. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, today I get to try two different lagers, both brewed by Guinness in Ireland, to find out whether what we got in replacement for the original Hop House 13 really was an improvement. Now, I keep wanting to say that Harp is kind of the new kid, the new version, the new lager, but actually, in one form or another, it's been kicking around in Ireland at least for decades. So it's not new entirely, but it's definitely new to the UK market, or at least it was a year or two ago when it first came out in the UK. I can't tell you why I haven't tried it, I've just not been that bothered about it, but when I got an opportunity to pick up an original Hop House 13 from Beers of Europe, because this is still sold elsewhere in Europe, I thought, yeah, let's put them head to head and see what they're really like. And are they really all that different? From the outset, obviously, one comes in a bottle, one comes in a can, one's a slightly bigger volume than the other. And in terms of ABV, there is just a tiny, tiny difference. This Guinness Hop House 13 comes in at 4.1% and the Harp Lager just 4%. Now, in the UK, when we had Hop House 13 as a continual thing, it was available initially at 5%, and then I think it dropped down to 4.6. So this 4.1 is definitely from a different market entirely, but does pitch it pretty close to the Harp, so it will be interesting to see. Based purely on the designs of the products, and I'll give you a quick look at each of them now. For me, the Hop House, this always felt like it was trying to emulate something of like a craft lager, a bit more modern, a bit more, I don't know, yeah, it's very with the times when it came out, kind of, I think it was 2016 when it first landed in the UK. Meanwhile, the Harp, on the other hand, this is very much giving that kind of Euro lager Pilsner kind of vibe. It's, I don't know, it's definitely not more modern, but it's interesting that this is what they replaced it with. It's also got kind of two fronts to the can. There's that one and then that one, which is, I don't know, just a bit weird. There's some info on the side there, but yeah, I don't know, it's all, it's fine. It's fine. The Hop House definitely looks more appealing as a product. It feels a bit more here and now, but yeah, they felt that the UK no longer needed the here and now, and that's maybe because we voted for Brexit. Who knows? But anyway, let's get into these. Let me remove the dog hair from the cap of the 13. Let's get these open. Okay, in the glasses, massive, massive difference. The Hop House 13, less head, less foamy, distinct big golden, looks like a bready lager, proper deep, rich amber hue to it. Meanwhile, the Harp, really golden, light, yeah, European Pilsner, nice big foamy head to it. They both look pretty decent, I have to say. These glasses are identical, just with different artwork on them, and, well, the Harp actually does look a touch better, but well, in terms of the head retention anyway, but actually that deeper, darker colour on the 13 gives me a bit of hope that that might actually be the fuller-bodied, more interesting product, but we will find out in a moment. So I'm going to do the Hop House 13 first because I have tried it before, although admittedly not at this slightly meagre 4.1% version, but let's give it a go. Aromas, pretty much what I remember. It might be a little bit more sweet, fruity, still quite hop centric though. It's got soft, sweet citrus notes, a bit of a grassy thing going on. There's a bit of a kind of burnt charred malt note in there as well. It smells quite good, actually, to be honest with you. I did review this, the last bottle I ever had that was in a proper UK supermarket edition. I reviewed it after they'd cleared them all out, basically, which was one I had left lying around in the back of the fridge. And I said it was okay, but I won't really miss it. Of course, this will be a slightly different recipe given that it is that low ABV, but it might be all the better for it, you know? Like, it's got not heaps and heaps of aroma, but it smells pretty good. Right, let's check out the Harp. Still looks good in the glass. Wildly different, really subdued. Slightly mulchy green hop note. It's not all that appealing. It's got a very similar kind of caramelized malt note to it, which is surprising given how light this is, but I can see some kind of resemblance between the two. It's definitely a lot less sweet, like there's not as many fruity notes going on. slightly bready, but it's really not doing a lot, if I'm honest. Not doing a lot. It smells okay. There's no off notes either. It's just a bit, well, just a bit bland. Right. As a result of that, actually, I'm going to try the Harp first because I'm just absolutely convinced there's going to be way more flavour in the Hop House. So let's get over here first. Cheers. Okay, I want to hate it, but I kind of don't. It's not great, don't get me wrong. It's curious. It's got like this very typical, generic, mass-produced, tinny, thin, a bit metallic lager note right at the start. That's like, okay, it's kind of what I expected. It was always going to be there. But then the second half, the malt character is fantastic. It's not big, it's not bold. This nice sweet, biscuity, sweet bread kind of thing going on. I don't know why, but I'm finding this an alarmingly decent drink. Don't get me wrong, it's not great. There are loads of issues with it, especially over that kind of first half of the tongue. But as you get into the aftertaste of that, like, really not bad at all. Like, there's a lot worse out there. Right then, let's try the Hop House now. Cheers. It's been a while, Hop House. That feels a lot hoppier than I remember. And a lot fruitier. Like, it's really doubling down on this big, juicy, it almost feels flavoured. Like, it's peachy, apricot, stone fruit, a bit of orange maybe. Argument even for a few kind of black curranty notes here and there. It's almost giving a bit of like lager and black, but where it's not just black currant, it's kind of a mixed fruit cordial you've put in it. It's a bit odd. The flavours are a little bit more intense than the Harp, but despite the colour of it, the malt actually is a lot less evident. It's almost done a switcheroo on me. All the good flavours are up front. It's the green and fruity hop notes that really taken over, and then it kind of trails off into this, well, boring lager, if I'm honest. Now, don't get me wrong, lager is not boring, but this one, well, if I'm honest, just kind of is. I can't really get away from that. It's really fruity, and a lot of people will like it because it's really fruity, but again, I don't really remember Hop House in the UK being this fruit forward and this soft. It was more kind of a bit more sharper, bitter, quite a spiky, edgy lager from memory, and yet, yeah, here we're sat with a soft, fruity little thing. Right then, rapid fire, top to bottom tasting notes for both of these. Starting with the Harp lager, right on the tip of the tongue. Very soft, green, grassy, Euro hop, like typical Pilsner, a little bit tinny, but nothing ultimately that offensive. Then over the mid palate, that build continues. You start to get a hint of some actual proper malt character. You can tell that it's coming, but it's not really there yet. Like, the majority of the beer on the tongue really doesn't taste of an awful lot. Over the back of the tongue, the bitterness starts to pick up a bit, but other than that, actually there really isn't that much flavour while it's actually in your mouth and on your tongue. But the aftertaste is this thing's absolute saviour, because the bready malt note on that afterwards is absolutely fantastic. If all you're interested in is the aftertaste, it's really not a bad lager. Like, I'm very surprised I'm saying this, but it really isn't. Heaps of issues for the rest of it, but ultimately, the thing that you remember is that lasting flavour, and, well, it's actually pretty good. Just ignore the rest of it if you can. This is all relative. It's good for the price point that it's a generic mass-produced supermarket lager. Like, it's not a patch on any of the German stuff that I've reviewed recently, but yeah, it's better than a Madri. Let's say that much. Right then, on to the 13. So right on the tip of the tongue, sweet, fruity, candied fruits, almost a little bit bubblegummy right up front. Like, it really is quite odd for a lager to be getting those kind of notes out of it. And then over the mid palate, distinctly proper, almost IPA-inspired hop notes. Like, it's really doubling down on that kind of peach, stone fruit, apricot, melon, sweet citrus. Like, it's there. It's not massive. It's not a juice bomb by any means, but it's really quite oddly fruity still. Onto the back of the tongue. Bitterness picks up. You get a hint of malt, and I'll be honest, it's not a good malt character. It feels cheap. It feels a bit forced. It feels like most other cheap supermarket beer malt does, which oddly is kind of exactly the opposite of how I feel about the Harp. That feels like it's pushing up on the malt way better than it should be for a beer at this price point and production value and everything else, but it is what it is. Then on the aftertaste, bitter, pithy, fruit vibes continue, much more astringency, like, you know, sharp. I don't want to say citra because it's a hop that I hate and everyone knows that, but that kind of citrusy hop thing that gives you a very sharp, very acute, very drying, lip puckering, grapefruity experience. But again, it's soft. It's not like drinking an IPA, but those notes are definitely in there. And that's almost it. There's not a lot of malt value to talk about. They're fine. In the grand scheme of mass-produced lager, they are okay. Like, they're not the worst. If I walked into a restaurant and I wasn't expecting good beer in there and they had either of these, I'd probably be not happy, but relieved that it wasn't anything worse. But I have to say, despite it tasting almost of nothing, I actually think having the Harp lager here in the UK is better than having the Hop House 13, but they are intrinsically different styles. If you really like the Hop House 13, you're probably not going to be that mad on the Harp, but if you weren't bothered about the 13, maybe give the Harp a go, because that might be more up your street. They are very, very different to say it's just lager produced by Guinness, who, let's be honest, I wouldn't have thought would be bothered to output that many different varieties of lager, but, well, here we are, and they are two distinctly different styles. It was an interesting head-to-head, for sure. Have you tried either of these? Let me know in the comments below what you thought, and are there any other lagers that you would like compared, or either of these put up against? Also, let me know, please, in the comments, and I will endeavour to do so. But that really is all I've got to say about it, so as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already subscribed, if you would be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.